you're sensitive to that, please be aware. Let's get right into the case. This case happened on October 22nd, 2013, in a town called Danvers, Massachusetts. That is not far from the famous town of Salem, from the Salem witch trials. It's a suburb of Boston, about 30 minutes away. And interesting, unrelated fact, interesting to me that is that the lead singer of the band Boston graduated from high school in this town. And I love Boston. Not related to this case, so let's move on. Now, this case really hit me hard because the victim in this case was such an unbelievably amazing person. Not to say that all the victims aren't, but in this case, for some reason, it was just overly striking to me how unfair it is when someone so good she had only been working at Danvers for a short time, she was well liked by the staff and students. Now, moving to October 22nd, 2013. This was her second year teaching there, and the school year had just started in September. Now, this particular day was Dress Like Your Friend Day, or something like that. Everyone was supposed to dress like somebody else. So, Colleen and another math teacher both wore a purple shirt and black pants that day. Now, she was still living with her parents, and she was only 24. So, every morning she would leave the house before 7. She would wake her parents to say goodbye, and she did that this morning as well. And they normally would see her back home around 3:30. It was just her basic schedule. So, now hold on to that information for a moment. Let me tell you about Philip Chisholm. On this same day, he was 14 years old, and he was in 9th grade. He had just moved to Danvers from Tennessee a couple months before, and he had just started school here at the beginning of the semester. The reason for his move was that his parents were divorcing. So he and his mother had moved to Massachusetts. And he was not even slightly happy about this move. He was miserable with it. But he had no choice. So there he was at school. He made himself a few friends. He joined the soccer team, and he was actually like one of the best players on the team. And he was known to just be a quiet kid, but polite. Nothing out of the ordinary about him. He was an average student. So he was in Colleen's class. It was the last period of the day. It was from about 1 o'clock to 1:55 every day. And after class, there was an extra help period that went until 2:30. So that day, Philip went to the class. He was said to be a little more quiet than usual. After the class was over, he stayed for extra help. And another girl named Autumn also stayed. But for some reason, she didn't really need help. She was just there to be with Colleen. I guess she liked her teacher that much. She just wanted to spend the time with her. So we get some information from her. She said that Colleen was making like pleasant small talk with Philip. And she asked him if he missed Tennessee, and he seemed a bit aggravated by this question, kind of annoyed and upset. So she sensed it and she changed the subject. just started walking and walking and walking. He walked right into the town next door. Meanwhile, Colleen had not come home. And even though she was a full-grown adult, it just didn't seem normal. She wasn't reachable, and her parents were getting worried. So her father went over to the school to look for her. He saw her car in the lot, but he couldn't find her, and no one knew where she was. So he called her friends, thinking maybe she was out, for a bite or a drink or something, but nope, he couldn't find her. So at some point later that evening, they did report her missing to the police. Now, Philip Chisholm's mother was also missing her son. She hadn't heard from him. She couldn't find him. She reported him missing to the police. Remember, he was 14 years old. So later that evening, or I guess you can call it the next day because it was around midnight or a little after midnight, a boy in the next town was seen walking down a major road, the kind of road where people just don't walk. It's dangerous to just walk along the road, plus he was like a young teenage boy walking alone. So the police, having no idea who he might be, just thinking it doesn't seem good, let me stop him. They stopped and spoke to him and said, "Where are you from?" And he said he's from Tennessee. Not quite the answer that they were looking for. But they brought him down to the police station there. When they searched Philip, they found Colleen's wallet, her cell phone. They found a pair of women's underwear and a bloody box cutter. Now, they didn't know Colleen's name. They hadn't heard that she was missing in the next town. But they did quickly learn that he was missing. That much they knew. So they asked whose blood is on this box cutter, and he said it's the girl's. And he told them that she is buried in the woods. So they sent out a search party and found her body, sadly, around 3 a.m. in the woods behind the school. She had been strangled. She had been cut many times with the box cutter. She had been sexually assaulted, possibly more than once, and a branch from the tree had been inserted in her. The medical examiner was not sure if she had passed away in the bathroom where she was attacked, or if she had passed away later on in the woods after bleeding out excessively. It was hard for them to really be sure. Beside her body was a note that said, "I hate you all." was being detained at the juvenile detention center, he attacked a female staffer. He followed her into the bathroom with a sharpened pencil. And luckily for her, other staff heard her screaming, and they came and saved her. So he wound up with an attempted murder charge for that. It turns out that Philip had brought to school that day the box cutter, the gloves, and the extra clothing, which suggests that it was premeditated. He knew what he was going to do. He had followed her into the bathroom, as we saw on the surveillance. Once he got into the bathroom, he overpowered her, he raped her, he cut her with the box cutter, he strangled her, and he basically left her for dead at that point, which he may or may not have been. He had his trial in 2016. The defense tried to get him an insanity plea by saying that he was psychotic at the time of the crime, and that possibly he was at the beginning of developing schizophrenia. But either way, it was some sort of psychotic disorder, and it was triggered by the mention of Tennessee by Colleen, and also the divorce and the move was very traumatic for him, also kind of leading to this psychotic break. But other clinicians said that he was malingering, making up these psychotic symptoms, and that he was completely aware of what he was doing, sometimes, sit around saying, I wonder what went on in his life to lead him to this. So, that's it. That's the case. What do you think? I will tell you what I think. Number one, my heart goes out, as I said in the beginning, to Colleen, who was such a positive person, such a good person with so much to give to others and so much life left in her. So awful that her life was taken from her, and in such a horrible, horrible way. And I feel for her family and friends as well, of course. So why did this have to happen? Why did Philip choose Colleen? Was it random? Had he selected her specifically? What was it about him that made him want to do this? Was he born this way? And of course, he did it again shortly after. He pretty much tried to do the same thing to the staff member at the juvenile detention facility. What was he thinking there? Could he have been psychotic? I don't think he was psychotic. But, I mean, obviously, he is mentally ill, but not legally insane. Because nobody in their right mind would attack somebody in a juvenile detention facility. You know you're not getting away with anything there. But how did he go from being what everyone said was just this normal, quiet guy to being this evil monster? How does that happen? It seems kind of scary to me that somebody could fool everyone like that. Like, you think you know someone. We all think we know people, right? But I guess you can be surprised sometimes. Does anyone out there think that he was psychotic? Could it have been a psychotic break? But if it was a psychotic break, why did he, try to hide it at first? After doing it, he went and he got that recycling bin and he hid her inside and snuck her out of the school. Like, all that. Is that psychotic behavior? I don't think so. He knew